Hello, beautiful people on the internet. Today we're going to be talking about how to get your creativity back if you're an artist, or if you are someone who likes to create art, but you have feel a little bit detached from yourself lately. I'm gonna try to give you some tips that have had worked with me, and I really hope they work with you too. We're going to be talking about what it means to be an artist and how social media kills your creativity if you use it wrong. I bet you are tired of seeing everywhere that scrolling through your phone kills your brain, but it's true. I also think that no one gives you tips on how to use these tools and these platforms on your benefit. And listen, I'm not an expert, but I am a person who's been on the internet since the age of 12 and I'm almost 26, and I feel that my brain each year goes slower and slower and slower, and honestly I don't like that, and I bet you don't like that either. That's why you clicked on this video. So I'm going to try to give you some tips that I've been doing these past months that I feel that have worked for me. And again, I'm not an expert. You know your limits, you know the way you work and the way you think and the way you act when you're alone. So I think that's enough to set your habits. I think the first thing you should do is to ask yourself, what does it mean to you to be an artist or to be creative in a certain way? Because sometimes we get so distracted by everything that's around us that we kind of forget why do we do the things we do, or why do we like to do certain things, or what's the point, basically. So if you're feeling a little bit lost, don't worry about it, because every period of your life it's seasonal and you can always learn about yourself. And when you finally have that figured out, I think it's going to be easier to have certain routines, to have a healthier habit on the media you consume and the way you use your phone and the way you use everything you have in your hand to create things. If you have trouble figuring this out, you can always try not to think and just do. Sometimes the best answer is just to do things, and sometimes you have to force yourself a little bit to do things. I know that this may be a little bit complicated at first if you're not used to be asking yourself this kind of questions, or if you don't spend enough time with yourself to try and figure it out how you feel about certain topics, specifically about things that are so personal. That's why I think it's the most important step to just sit down and think about what you feel, what you want, and try to find inside of you why your body or your mind asks you to do certain things, and why do you choose it to express it with art. And this is very aligned with the way we consume social media, because we are so flooded with information about other people and how other people live, and maybe we see people making art and making a living out of their art, so we think that that's the way, or you know what I mean. You have to search within yourself why you do the things you do. Maybe to you art is just a hobby, and that's perfectly fine, but you need to know that because it can be your favorite escape from the world. But if you think that you should make money from your art, it will never fulfill you as it was supposed to, because it was supposed to be a hobby to you. So yeah, there's no a right answer to this. It's just do what you feel, and anything that comes out from this question is totally valid, and it will help you to keep on with the next step I'm gonna try to explain to you. For this step number 2, this one is going to be a little bit difficult, and I know you've heard this many times and you're probably very tired of it, but you should stop spending so much time on your phone. And with this I mean you should try to consume things outside your phone. If you're someone that uses to read a lot and now you don't because you spend your time on TikTok, you should try to stop a little bit and come back to that. Reading is something very useful for your creativity and to try to make your brain to go back to the rhythm that it uses to have before we had this kind of apps like TikTok or Instagram or even YouTube. So by reading I mean you don't have to read an essay on psychology to go back on track and try to connect yourself with your mind. No, you can read whatever you want. And if you're not a person who likes to read because you like to see things or be more visual, you can always try to read comic books, or you can always try to read a novel that has an illustrated version and things like that, to try to get your mind outside of their phone. Because the thing with the phone is that we don't have to think while we use it. We can use our phone for hours without having any thought, and that's where the problem is. That's where you are so flooded of information, and then when you finish using your phone, you don't have energy to sit down and make your own art, and then you get stuck and you feel bad about being stuck, and you know that the problem is the phone, but we are so addicted to it that we cannot find a moment without it. But I promise you, you can get disintoxicated from your phone if you really want to. You can do this many ways. You don't have to stop completely and not touch your phone for a whole day. If you can, that's the best thing you can do, because you are trying to make your brain readjust to being a human and trying to do things without the phone. But if you can't, you can always try to switch to other things so you can get back on track. For example, you want to scroll through TikTok and you know you're going to feel very bad if you can't stop scrolling for hours. So instead of going through TikTok, you can always get on YouTube and try to find something fun to watch. And the longer the video is, the better. If you know that YouTube is not going to help you, maybe you can always try to watch an episode from your favorite show, or maybe trying to watch that film you wanted to watch. But you may think, well, watching a show and watching a movie, it's also consuming media, consuming something, but it's not the same as the apps you consume every day. When you watch a movie, usually you're watching something that is meant to have an impact on you. It's made to make you think. Not every movie, but most of the time they start a conversation inside of your head, and many times movies can open that little gate that you needed to get back on track with your creativity. And I'm not saying that you have to watch a movie or watch your favorite TV show each time you want to scroll through social media, but it's a way to trick your mind to consume something that you know is going to be a little bit more beneficial in the long term for your creativity. If your problem is with Instagram, for example, and you tend to scroll through pictures non-stop, I can always recommend you to try Tumblr. And if you don't like Tumblr because it's a slower version, or you don't follow a lot of people there, maybe there's the key to the addiction to Instagram, which is watching everybody live their lives happily and then feeling bad about yourself because you're not doing what they are doing with their life. So I think you can always try to switch to other pages where you can find a little bit more of creative content, and other option can be Pinterest, which is a really great site, but I wouldn't recommend you to spend hours there because again you will be flooded with information and flooded with ideas and pictures and everything, and sometimes that can create the same thing that TikTok does when you watch a lot of videos non-stop. It's always trying to find the balance between how many hours and why do you use your apps the way you use it. If you want to escape, try to pick up a book, try to pick up a movie. If you are not in the mood to watch something new, you can always watch something you know you like, so you can get engaged really easy to what you are watching. And if you have trouble watching films, watching TV shows, or even reading because you don't have a good attention span, you can always try to listen to music. And if you're tired of your music, try to discover new albums, try to discover new genres, because I bet you will find something very interesting that eventually will help you to open that gate that I told you before. There are a lot of things we can consume without getting fatigued and tired, because we shouldn't feel like that, especially if we are artists. For step number 3, I will recommend you to get your art on a physical field. And this sounds a little bit tricky if you are someone who makes art that it's digital. Maybe you can always try to make something physical out of the digital thing you're doing. And I'm not talking about if you're a painter or a sculptor. I'm not talking about that kind of art. I'm talking more like if you're someone who makes music, or that you are an actress, or maybe you are a graphic designer or a 3D artist, or everything you can think of that you can create from a laptop or a computer. You can always try to take that and make something physical. I'm gonna give you an example with myself so it can be easier. I make music, so sometimes when I get very overwhelmed with an idea, or I have a feeling that I can't transform into what I'm working on, I try to get it out in paper first. That's the way my body tells me that it's best to work. I'm gonna give you an example of something I have right here. This is a rough sketch of a feeling I had while making music, and I didn't know how to create that, so I draw this, and instantly I saw what I wanted to do. That's what I mean when I say that you can always try to transform what you're doing in the digital field into something physical, so you can free yourself a little bit And I think that's all of the tips or advice I have that maybe can be useful to you. And again, this is something that you can actually do if you really want to do it, or if you are willing to. And that's all the tips or advice that I have for you. I know they all sound very heavy or too much at first if you're not really used to doing these practices, but it gets very easy over time, and you can always try to do something new each day. And if it's too much for you to do something new each day, you can always try to do that at the end of the week. And the main thing is that you shouldn't force yourself into doing everything all at once. You have to be doing things little by little so you can actually get where you want to get. And to wrap up this video, I'm going to give you a tour through my notebooks and journals so you can see the way I work and how I try to take these practices and tips I have told you into reality. I have to say that you don't need all of these things and you don't need all of these journals. This is just me because I try to get my head organized so I can work. The first one is a really normal notebook where I try to write down what I want to do in the day. It's a little bit like an agenda. I have it organized by months, so I can always write down things I have to do in the month that I don't want to forget about. And then I have my weekly recap. It's a very simple notebook where I write down everything I want to do in the day or things that I want to get done by the end of the month, and planning things ahead so I can know how much time I have to do things. Then I have another notebook where I write down everything useful for my music knowledge. I am someone who's been trying to learn as much as I can from the internet because I don't have access to any other thing. Music is something I have to learn by myself, and in this notebook I try to write down every single tip I find important or interesting from production, the way music works, and all of these things. So in here I have everything music related. I try not to be too messy, especially if something like music have to be very visual about certain things, so I try to draw things so it can be useful. And also I have loose papers with songs, ideas and things like that that I keep here so I don't lose them. And then I have this notebook which is pretty new. In this one I'm doing the artist way. If you don't know what that is, the artist way is a book where you have weekly guidance so you can find yourself as an artist. And I've had this book recommended to me a few years ago, but I've never given it a try until I find out, as many other people, that Doechii did it a few years ago and it helped her to find her way as an artist. So I'm giving it a try. I'm only on my first week, but I can always tell you how it goes. Then I have a sketchbook because, as I said, I'm someone who needs to see things visually, so right here I have drawings, special things that have had inspired me to make songs later on, or maybe some days that I feel a little bit more blocked, so I need to draw first and then make my art. I'm gonna show you how they look all together. This is all of them. It's not much, but it's everything to me, and my mind and soul is in here. This has been all. I truly hope that this video has resonated with you in some way, or that can actually help you to find your way as an artist, because I think it's very important to get in touch with ourselves, and it's totally normal to feel lost or to lost yourself in the way, but it's even more important to try to get back to you, because you're the only person you have at the end of the day, and you need to stay in touch with yourself along the way. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. If you take in practice anything of what I have recommended to you, please let me know in the comments, because I really want to know if the things that have worked for me have worked for you too. And that's all. See you around.